D1 stood near the east entrance of the Grand Hall, his eyes moving across the crowd with practiced ease. He had worked security for 3 years in the Galactic Consortium, but this was his first assignment on Velmarha. The planet was beautiful in a cold way, all silver towers and blue crystal gardens. The people who lived here were just as cold, at least from what he had seen. The Velmarha looked like walking sculptures made of dark green scales. They moved with perfect grace, their golden eyes showing nothing but calm intelligence. D1 had read the briefing files. The Velmarha valued logic above all else. They planned everything. They never acted on emotion. They never took unnecessary risks. D1 was the opposite. He was human, and humans were known across the galaxy as the species that did things without thinking first. Deathworlders, they called his people. Earth was a nightmare planet where everything tried to kill you, so humans evolved to be tough and reckless. He touched the comm device in his ear. "Section 4 clear," he said quietly. "Confirmed," replied the security coordinator, a Velmarha named Talmas. "Maintain position." The reception was being held in honor of some trade agreement. D1 did not care much about the details. His job was simple: watch his section, report anything strange, and make sure nobody caused trouble. It was boring work, but it paid well. Across the massive hall, Empress Talrison stood on a raised platform. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid metal. Even from a distance, D1 could feel the power she carried. This was a woman who ruled an empire that stretched across 12 star systems. Near the platform, a young Velmarha girl stood looking uncomfortable in formal clothing. Princess Hirin, D1 recalled from the briefing. She was young, maybe 12 in human years. She kept glancing around the room with bright, curious eyes. Her tutors and attendants hovered nearby, looking worried every time she moved. D1 almost smiled. The kid looked bored out of her mind. He went back to scanning his section. Everything seemed normal. Servers moved between guests carrying trays of food and drinks that D1 could not identify. Diplomats from a dozen species talked in small groups. Music played softly in the background. Then D1 noticed something. One of the servers was moving wrong, too stiff, too focused. D1's eyes narrowed. He watched the server approach a service door. Another server joined him, then another. D1's hand moved to his sidearm. "Talmas, I have possible suspicious activity near service entrance 7. "Describe," Talmas responded. 3 servers, moving in formation. Pattern suggests military training. There was a pause. "All servers have been background checked. You are seeing patterns that do not exist human." D1 gritted his teeth. Maybe he was wrong, maybe he was being paranoid, but his instincts were screaming at him. The 3 servers split up. One moved toward the Empress's platform. The other 2 circled in opposite directions. D1's heart started beating faster. He pushed away from the wall and began moving through the crowd. He kept his eyes on the servers. Princess Hirin had wandered away from her attendants. She stood near a massive viewport, staring out at the stars. She was alone. One of the servers was moving straight toward her. "Security alert," D1 said into his comm. "I think we have." The server's hand went inside his serving jacket. When it came out, it held a compact energy pistol. Time seemed to slow down. D1 saw the weapon rise. He saw the princess turn, her young face confused. He saw the server's finger tighten on the trigger. D1 did not think, he just moved. His legs pushed him forward in a sprint. Guests stumbled out of his way. Someone shouted. Alarms started blaring. But all D1 could see was the little girl standing frozen with fear as death aimed at her heart. The server fired. D1 crashed into Princess Hirin, wrapping his arms around her small body. He twisted in the air, putting his back between her and the weapon. They hit the floor hard, D1 taking the impact on his shoulder. Heat exploded across his back, pain like nothing he had ever felt before. The smell of burning flesh filled his nose. His flesh. The first plasma bolt had hit him square between the shoulder blades. He heard screaming. The princess was screaming, or maybe he was. Another impact. This one caught his left shoulder. More burning, more pain. D1 kept his body curled around the small Velmarha girl. He could feel her shaking beneath him. Warm blood was running down his back. His blood. Energy weapons discharged nearby. Proper security had finally responded. D1 heard bodies hitting the floor. The assassins, he hoped. Clear, clear, all threats neutralized, someone shouted. Hands grabbed D1, trying to pull him away. He did not want to let go. He had to make sure she was safe. He had to. Sir, you need to release the princess. Medical team is here. D1's arms finally relaxed. Someone rolled him onto his side. The pain was getting worse, spreading through his whole body. He could see Princess Hirin now. She was sitting up, staring at him with wide golden eyes. There was blood on her formal clothes, his blood. Why, she whispered, why did you do that? D1 tried to answer, but his mouth would not work right. Why had he done it? He did not know this girl. She was not his responsibility. His job was just to watch a section of the room. But she was a kid, and someone was trying to hurt her, and he was there. That was enough. Deathworlder instincts, he heard Talma say from somewhere above him. The security coordinator sounded amazed. He did not calculate odds or plan escape routes. He just sacrificed himself. Get him to medical now, another voice commanded, female, powerful, the Empress. D1 felt hands lifting him onto a stretcher. The movement sent fresh waves of agony through his body. His vision was getting dark around the edges. The last thing he saw before everything went black was Princess Hirin's face. She was crying. D1 had not known that Velmarha could cry. He tried to tell her it was okay, that she was safe now, that it did not hurt so much. But he was lying. It hurt terribly. Then the darkness took him, and he knew nothing more. Somewhere in the chaos, Empress Talreisen stood looking down at the blood on the marble floor. She had watched the security footage 3 times already. The human had not hesitated for even a fraction of a second. He had seen danger to her daughter and thrown himself into harm's way without thought for his own survival. It was the most illogical, inefficient, foolish thing she had ever witnessed. It was also the most beautiful. She looked at her daughter, who was being checked by medical staff even though she was completely unharmed. Hirin could not stop shaking. She kept asking about the human who had saved her. Talreisen made a decision. She did not know if it was logical, but she knew it was right. The human would live, she would make sure of it, and then they would talk. D1 woke up slowly. Everything hurt, but it was a dull ache instead of the screaming agony he remembered. He tried to move and immediately regretted it. His back felt like it was made of broken glass. Do not move, a calm voice said. Your injuries are healing, but the synthetic skin is still bonding. D1 opened his eyes. He was in a room he did not recognize. The walls were a soft blue color that seemed to glow from within. Medical equipment surrounded his bed, some of it making quiet beeping sounds. A Velmarha medical technician stood nearby, checking displays. Where am I? D1 asked. His voice came out rough and dry. Royal Medical Facility, the technician replied. You have been unconscious for 3 standard days. 3 days? D1 tried to remember what happened. The reception, the assassins, the little princess. He had jumped in front of her, plasma burns, everything went black. The princess, he said urgently, is she? Princess Hirin is unharmed, thanks to your actions. The technician tilted his head, a Velmarha gesture that showed confusion. Your concern for her well-being is noted, though I do not understand it. You barely know her. Before D1 could respond, the door opened. 2 figures entered. D1 recognized Empress Talreisen immediately. Behind her, trying to look smaller than she was, came Princess Hirin. The technician bowed deeply and quickly left the room. D1 tried to sit up straighter and failed. "Rest, D1," the Empress said. Her voice was strange, warm almost. "You have earned it." She moved closer to his bed. Up close, she was even more impressive. Her scales seemed to shimmer with inner light. Her golden eyes studied him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Princess Hirin stayed by the door. She kept looking at him and then looking away, her hands twisted together nervously. "I want to thank you," the Empress continued. "And I want to understand. I have watched the security footage 17 times now. I have shown it to my advisors, to military strategists, to behavioral scientists. None of them can explain what you did." "I just reacted," D1 said. "Exactly," the Empress replied. "You reacted. A Velmarha in your position would have assessed the threat, calculated the odds, and acted to preserve their own life while attempting to neutralize the danger. You did none of those things. You saw danger to my daughter and placed yourself between her and death without any thought for your own survival." D1 did not know what to say. To him it had been obvious. A kid was in danger. He was close enough to help. End of story. "How many?" he asked instead. The Empress raised one scaled eyebrow. "How many what?" "Assassination attempts. You said you watched this one 17 times. That sounds like this was not the first." The Empress was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "You are observant. Yes, this was the 17th attempt on Hirin's life in the past cycle. We have enemies who believe that killing my heir will destabilize the Empire." 17, D1 repeated. He looked at Princess Hirin, who was now staring at the floor. "And she is how old?" 12 standard years. Anger started burning in D1's chest. 17 attempts on a child's life. What kind of galaxy was this? "Your bodyguards," he said carefully. "I saw them in the briefing. Top tier, best equipment. Why did none of them reach her in time?" "They neutralized the other 2 assassins within seconds," the Empress said. "They performed exactly as trained. But their training prioritizes their own survival. They engage threats from a distance. They use cover. They maintain tactical superiority. They do not throw themselves on bombs," D1 said quietly. "No, they do not." The Empress stepped even closer. "I have the best security force in this sector of the galaxy. They are efficient. They are deadly. They have saved Hirin's life 16 times, but not once has any of them been willing to die for her, because that would be illogical." D1 was starting to understand where this was going. He did not like it. "I have studied humans since this incident," the Empress continued. "Your species fascinates me. You come from a death world, yes. You are tough and hard to kill, but that is not what makes you unique. Other death world species exist. What makes humans special is this." She gestured to him. "This willingness to sacrifice yourself for others. This pack-bonding instinct that extends even to species not your own." "We are social animals," D1 said. "We evolved in tribes. Taking care of each other kept us alive. And now you extend that care to alien children you have never spoken to." The Empress turned and motioned to Hirin. The young princess walked forward slowly. She stopped at D1's bedside. Her golden eyes were wet. D1 realized she was crying again. "I am sorry," she said in a small voice. "I am sorry you were hurt because of me." "Hey," D1 said gently. "Not your fault, kid. Those bad guys made their own choices." "But you could have died. Mother showed me the medical reports. The burns covered 40% of your back. If you had been Velmarha, you would have died." Her voice cracked. "Why did you save me? You do not even know me." "Didn't need to know you," D1 said. "You needed help, I could help. Simple as that." Hirin stared at him like he had just spoken a completely foreign language. Maybe to her he had. The Empress placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Hirin, please wait outside. I need to speak with D1 privately." The princess nodded and left, though she kept looking back at him until the door closed. Once they were alone, the Empress's expression became serious. "I am going to make you an offer, D1, or rather a demand." "Here it comes," D1 thought. "I want you to become Hirin's personal guardian. You will live in the palace. You will be with her always. You will protect her with the same devotion you showed 3 days ago." The Empress held up a hand before he could protest. "I have already purchased your contract from the consortium. You work for me now." "You cannot just buy people," D1 said, anger rising. "I did not buy you. I bought your contract. There is a difference." She pulled out a data tablet and showed him the screen. "I paid triple the buyout clause. The consortium was very happy to make the deal." D1 stared at the numbers on the screen. That was more money than he had made in his entire life. "I am not qualified for this," he said. "I am just a contractor, basic security work. I do not know how to protect royalty." "You will learn. I have already arranged for advanced training. Velmarha combat masters will teach you. The best strategists will brief you on threat assessment. You will have access to any resource you need." "And if I refuse?" The Empress smiled. It was not a warm expression. "Then you will serve out your contract doing whatever security work I assign you. I own your contract either way, D1, but I would prefer you choose this willingly." D1 felt trapped. He looked around the medical room at the expensive equipment keeping him alive. He thought about the little princess with tears in her golden eyes, asking why he had saved her. 17 assassination attempts. 17 times she had faced death, and she was just 12 years old. "How long?" he asked. "Until she reaches maturity. 8 more standard years." 8 years. 8 years of his life dedicated to protecting one girl. It was crazy. It was not what he had signed up for. He had just wanted simple security work and decent pay. But he remembered the feeling of that small body trembling in his arms as he shielded her. He remembered thinking that no kid should have to be that scared. "I want one condition," D1 said. The Empress raised her eyebrow again. "You are not in a position to negotiate." "I know, but I want this anyway. If I do this, I do it my way, not Velmarha way, human way." "Explain." "Your guards protect from a distance. They stay safe so they can keep fighting. That is smart tactics, but protecting someone is not just about keeping them alive. It is about making them feel safe. If I do this, I stay close. I take the risks, and you do not interfere with my methods." The Empress studied him for a long moment. "You are asking me to let you be illogical." "I am asking you to let me be human." She laughed then. It was a sound like crystal chimes. "Very well, D1. Protect my daughter your way. Teach her what it means to be guarded by someone who actually cares. Perhaps she will learn something my people have forgotten." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Rest now, heal. When you can walk again, your new life begins." After she left, D1 lay back and stared at the glowing ceiling. 8 years. 8 years protecting a kid who cried when strangers got hurt saving her. He had a feeling it was going to be a long 8 years. But maybe not a bad 8 years. Maybe. 2 months had passed since D1 woke up in the Royal Medical Facility. His back still ached sometimes, especially when the weather changed, but the synthetic skin had bonded well. The scars would be with him forever, but he was alive and moving. That was enough. Palace life was strange. D1 had a suite of rooms bigger than any apartment he had ever lived in. Servants brought him food he could not pronounce. He attended briefings with security personnel who looked at him like he was some kind of strange curiosity. He spent his days learning. Combat masters taught him Velmarha fighting techniques. Intelligence officers briefed him on known threats. Technology specialists showed him how to use advanced security equipment. Everyone was professional and thorough. But they all thought he was crazy. "This plan is inefficient," said Commander Kelvin, head of palace security. He was looking at D1's protection proposal for Princess Hirin. You position yourself as the primary shield in every scenario. This gives you a 73% chance of severe injury or death in a major attack. That is the point, D1 said. But if you are dead, you cannot continue protecting the princess. If I am dead, it means the attacker had to go through me first. That gives other security time to respond and protect her. Kelvin stared at him. You are intentionally designing a system where you will die. I am designing a system where she lives. Your way, everyone stays safe and keeps fighting. My way, I make sure the bad guys have to kill me before they can touch her. D1 met the commander's eyes. Can you promise me your guards would do the same? Kelvin was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally said, I cannot promise that. Then we do it my way. The commander approved the plan. D1 suspected the Empress had ordered him to, but he did not care about the politics. He had a job to do. The hardest part was not the training or the planning. It was getting to know Princess He-Rin. She was terrified of him at first, not physically scared but emotionally uncomfortable. She did not know how to talk to someone who had nearly died for her. Every time they were in the same room, she would apologize again. Finally, D1 had enough. Stop apologizing, he said one afternoon in the palace garden. He-Rin had just said sorry for the 14th time that day. She looked startled, but you were hurt because bad people tried to kill you and I stopped them. You did not shoot me, they did. He sat down on a stone bench and gestured for her to join him. Come here, I want to teach you something. He-Rin sat down carefully, leaving space between them. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. You feel guilty, D1 said. Like you owe me something, like it is your fault I got hurt. Am I right? She nodded slowly. That guilt is going to eat you alive if you let it. So here is what I need you to understand. I made a choice. Nobody forced me. I saw someone who needed help and I helped. You would do the same, right? If you saw someone in danger. I do not know, He-Rin said quietly. I have never been in that situation. Because people protect you. But if you could help someone, you would want to, yes. Yes. Then do not take away my choice by feeling guilty about it. I did what I wanted to do, accept it and move forward. D1 smiled at her. Besides, if you keep apologizing, we are never going to be friends, and I could use a friend in this giant palace. That got a small smile from her. You want to be my friend? Sure, why not? You seem like a good kid, curious, thoughtful, a little too serious for your age, but we can work on that. He-Rin's smile grew wider. Mother says I ask too many questions. Then you and I will get along great. Ask away. And she did. Over the following weeks, He-Rin peppered D1 with questions about Earth, about humans, about his life before the palace. She wanted to know everything. D1 learned about her too. She was lonely, he realized. Velmarha culture encouraged independence from a young age. Children were taught to be self-sufficient, to rely on logic rather than emotion. Close friendships were rare because they were seen as unnecessary emotional attachments. He-Rin had tutors and attendants, but no real friends. No one she could just talk to about normal things. D1 decided to change that. He started teaching her practical skills during their time together. How to read a room and spot danger. How to trust her instincts when something felt wrong. Basic self-defense moves. How to stay calm when scared. Why are you teaching me this? She asked one day during a lesson. You are supposed to protect me. If I can protect myself, you are not needed. Wrong, D1 said. I am teaching you this because the best protection is preparation. I cannot be everywhere at once. If something happens and I am not there, you need to know what to do. But you are always there. For now, but what if I am hurt? What if I am dealing with one threat and another appears? You need to be able to handle yourself. He put a hand on her shoulder. I am not trying to replace myself. I am trying to make you stronger. She seemed to think about that. Velmarha guards do not do this. They keep us dependent on them. I am not Vilmorhe. No, Hirin said softly. You are human, you are different. One afternoon, about 2 months into D1's service, everything changed. They were walking through the palace gardens. It was one of Hirin's favorite places, full of strange alien plants that glowed in the fading sunlight. She was telling D1 about a book she was reading, her hands moving excitedly as she talked. D1 was only half listening. The other half of his attention was on their surroundings, always watching, always ready. He saw the movement in the bushes a second before it happened. A Kelshara, one of the local predators that sometimes wandered into the palace grounds, burst from the vegetation. It was all teeth and scales, fast as lightning. Its venomous fangs were aimed straight at Hirin's leg. D1's body moved before his mind finished processing the threat. He grabbed Hirin and spun, putting himself between her and the creature. His other hand went to the shock baton on his belt. The Kelshara's fangs sank into his calf instead of Hirin's. Pain exploded up his leg. Venom burned through his bloodstream, but D1 did not let go of the princess. With his free hand, he activated the shock baton and drove it into the creature's skull. The Kelshara convulsed and dropped, dead before it hit the ground. D1 stumbled and fell to one knee. The venom was fast. His vision was already getting blurry. He could feel his heart racing as his body tried to fight off the toxin. D1, Hirin screamed. She dropped beside him, her hands shaking as she tried to help. Guards, medical emergency, now. D1 tried to tell her he was okay, but his tongue was not working right. The garden was spinning. He was going to pass out. Not good. Stay conscious. Keep the princess safe until help arrives. Hirin was crying again. Tears were streaming down her scaled face. Why? Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep getting hurt for me? D1 managed to focus on her face. She looked so scared, so young. She needed an answer she could understand. Humans, pack bond, he said slowly, fighting the venom clouding his mind. We protect our pack, family, friends, people we care about. But I am not human. I am not your pack. D1 reached up with a shaking hand and touched her shoulder. You are, now that is, what humans do, we choose, our family, not just born into it. I do not understand, she sobbed. You will, he whispered. When you are older, you will understand that some things are worth protecting even if it costs. He did not finish the sentence. Medical personnel arrived, shouting orders. They injected him with anti-venom. Someone was asking Hirin what happened. She was explaining through tears. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, D1 heard her say something that made his heart ache. Where I come from, a child's life is worth any price. That is what he told me before. I think I am starting to understand what he meant. D1 smiled as the drugs pulled him under. Maybe she was learning. Maybe this would all mean something. He woke up 6 hours later in the medical facility again. His leg hurt like hell, but he was alive. The doctor said he would make a full recovery. Hirin was sitting beside his bed, reading a book. When she saw he was awake, she put the book down. I am not going to apologize, she said firmly. Because you told me not to, you made your choice, I accept it. Good, D1 said, his voice rough. But I am going to do something else. She stood up and looked him in the eyes. I am going to learn everything you try to teach me, all of it, because you are right. The best protection is preparation. And if you are going to keep risking your life for mine, then I am going to make sure I am worth it. D1 felt something warm in his chest. Pride, maybe. You are already worth it, kid. Maybe, Hirin said, but I can be better, you will see. She was right. Over the weeks that followed, Hirin threw herself into every lesson D1 offered. She practiced self-defense until her muscles ached. She studied threat assessment. She learned to stay calm under pressure. And slowly, she started to change. The frightened little girl who apologized for everything was becoming someone stronger, someone who understood that strength was not just about survival. It was about protecting the things that mattered. 6 months had passed since D1 became Princess Hirin's guardian. The palace had become familiar, almost comfortable. D1 knew every corridor, every guard post, every potential threat vector. He had reviewed security footage until his eyes hurt. He had run drills until the other guards got tired just watching him. And he had watched Hirin grow. She was different now. Still kind, still curious, but there was steel in her spine that had not been there before. She paid attention to her surroundings. She noticed when things were out of place. She had even started correcting her own security detail when they made mistakes. Commander Kelvin had pulled D1 aside last week. "What are you doing to the princess?" he demanded. "Teaching her," D1 replied. "You are making her paranoid." She questioned the positioning of guards during her music lesson yesterday. She analyzed exit routes during a state dinner. This is not normal behavior for a child. Would you rather she be an easy target? Kelvin had no answer for that. Now D1 stood in the Empress's private office, receiving news he did not like. "She must attend," Empress Talreisen said firmly. "It is tradition. Every royal heir participates in the Unity Summit when they reach this age. Hirin cannot be the first to refuse." "The security situation on Station Nexus 7 is unpredictable at best," D1 argued. "Too many entry points, too many foreign nationals. We cannot control the environment like we do here." "I am aware of the risks, but this is not negotiable." The Empress's golden eyes were hard. "Hirin will attend the summit. You will keep her safe. That is why I hired you." D1 wanted to argue more, but he knew it was pointless. He bowed his head. "Yes, Empress." "There is more." She pulled up a holographic display. "Our intelligence suggests the rebel faction may attempt another attack. They know about the summit. They know Hirin will be there. Then this is a trap. Perhaps, or perhaps it is an opportunity to finally capture them." The Empress waved away the display. "Either way, my daughter will attend. Make your preparations." D1 spent the next 3 weeks preparing. He studied every centimeter of Station Nexus 7's layout. He coordinated with station security. He planned evacuation routes and safe rooms. He triple-checked all equipment. And he worked with Hirin on emergency protocols. "If I say run, you run," he told her during one of their practice sessions. "You do not ask questions. You do not look back. You get to the nearest safe point and you activate your emergency beacon. Understood?" "What if you need help?" she asked. "I can handle myself. Your job is to stay alive." "But—" "No buts. If something happens, your survival is the priority, not mine." He put his hands on her shoulders. "Promise me. If I tell you to run, you run." Hirin looked unhappy, but she nodded. "I promise." The day of the summit arrived too quickly. Station Nexus 7 was a massive diplomatic facility floating in neutral space. It was beautiful in a cold, mechanical way. The main concourse was large enough to hold 5,000 beings from dozens of different species. Light filtered through transparent sections of the hull, showing the stars beyond. D1 hated it immediately. Too open, too many people, too many things that could go wrong. He stayed close to Hirin as they moved through the crowds. She wore formal robes and a diplomatic smile, playing her role perfectly. But D1 noticed her eyes moving, checking exits, watching the crowd. Good. She was paying attention. The cultural exchange event was held in one of the station's large assembly halls. Representatives from 20 different species gave presentations about their homeworlds. It was boring but harmless. D1 stood against the wall, watching everything. His hand never strayed far from his weapon. That was when he felt it, a change in the air, a tension that had not been there before. He activated his comm. "Status report, all sections." "North sector clear," East sector clear. South sector showing elevated energy readings. Investigating. Elevated energy readings. That could be anything, could be nothing. Could be a bomb. Herein, D1 said quietly, moving to her side. We need to leave now. She looked up at him, saw his expression, and nodded. No questions, good girl. They started moving toward the exit. Casual, not drawing attention, just a guard and a princess leaving early. The explosion ripped through the south wall before they made it 10 meters. The blast wave hit like a physical force. D1 grabbed Herin and pulled her down, covering her body with his own as debris rained around them. His ears were ringing. Smoke filled the air. People were screaming. Are you hurt? He shouted over the noise. No, I am okay. D1 pulled her to her feet. The room was chaos. People running in every direction. Emergency alarms blaring. Through the smoke, he saw movement. Armed figures in tactical gear moving with purpose toward their position. The assassins. Run, D1 pushed Herin toward a side corridor. Emergency protocol, go. She hesitated for just a second, looking back at him. Go, he shouted again. This time she ran. D1 turned to face the attackers. There were 4 of them that he could see, maybe more in the smoke. They were professional, moving in formation, military training, bad news. He drew his weapon and opened fire, took down the first one. The others scattered, using the panicking crowd for cover. Smart. D1 moved, always keeping himself between the assassins and the corridor where Herin had fled. He could not let them get past him. Energy bolts cut through the smoke. One caught him in the shoulder. Pain, but not critical. He kept moving, kept firing. 2 more down. Where was the 4th? There, flanking, trying to slip past. D1 adjusted his angle and fired. The assassin went down. That was when the 5th one appeared from behind, weapon aimed at D1's head. This is it, D1 thought. He had taken down 4, but there was no way to dodge from this position. At least Herin got away. The energy bolt never came. Instead, there was a crackling sound and the assassin collapsed. Standing behind him, holding a shock baton she had taken from an unconscious guard, was Princess Herin. I told you to run, D1 shouted. I did run to the security station. I got the weapon and came back. She was breathing hard, her eyes wide with fear, but her hands were steady. You said the best protection is preparation. Well, I prepared to protect you too. D1 wanted to be angry, but he could not help feeling proud. The corridor behind me. There is a secure room. Can you make it there? Not without you. More movement in the smoke. Reinforcements for one side or the other. They needed to move. Together then, D1 grabbed her hand. Stay low, follow me. They ran through the chaos. D1's shoulder was bleeding badly now. His vision was starting to blur, but he kept going. Herin stayed right beside him, matching his pace. They made it to the secure room. D1 slammed the door shut and activated the locks. The walls were reinforced. They would be safe here until help arrived. Herin was already pulling medical supplies from the emergency kit. Her hands shook, but she worked quickly, applying pressure to his wound just like he had taught her. I saved your life, she said, and there was wonder in her voice. Yeah, D1 said, you did. I was so scared. I thought you were going to die, but I remembered what you said about how fear does not matter if you act anyway. She kept pressure on the wound, tears running down her face. I could not let them kill you. You have saved me so many times. It was my turn. D1 reached up with his good hand and wiped away her tears. You did good, kid, real good. I understand now, she whispered. What you have been trying to teach me. It is not just about knowing how to fight or escape. It is about choosing to protect the people you care about, even when you are scared, especially when you are scared. That is exactly right. Station security found them 20 minutes later. The rebel cell had been eliminated. The crisis was over. In the medical bay, as doctors worked on his shoulder, D1 watched Hirin talking to her mother through a video link. The Empress looked shaken, something D1 had never seen before. "She fought," the Empress said quietly. "My daughter fought to protect another. She chose to return to danger rather than run to safety." "She is brave," D1 said. "She is becoming human," the Empress replied. There was something strange in her voice, not disapproval exactly, more like confusion mixed with respect. "She is learning your values, your illogical, beautiful values." D1 smiled. "Is that a bad thing?" The Empress was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know yet. Ask me in 8 years." The video link closed. Hirin came and sat beside his bed. "Does it hurt?" "Not too bad, I have had worse." "Because you keep throwing yourself in front of danger for me." "And today you threw yourself in front of danger for me." He looked at her seriously. "We are even now." "No," Hirin said firmly. "We are family now, that is what you said. Family protects each other. There is no keeping score." D1 felt that warm feeling in his chest again. Pride, joy, something else he could not quite name. "Yeah," he said softly, "we are family." And for the first time since this whole thing started, he knew he had made the right choice. She was worth protecting, not because she was a princess, not because it was his job, but because she was his. 3 weeks after the attack on Station Nexus 7, D1's shoulder had healed enough for him to return to full duty. The synthetic tissue had bonded well this time, another scar to add to his collection. He was starting to look like a combat veteran. Maybe he was one now. Life in the palace had settled back into routine. Hirin attended her lessons. D1 shadowed her everywhere. They practiced defensive drills. They talked. They had become comfortable with each other in a way that surprised him. She was not just his assignment anymore. She was his friend, his student, his responsibility in ways that went far beyond any contract. That was why the summons from Empress Talrayson filled him with unease. He stood in her private chambers, the same place where she had made her demand 8 months ago. She looked the same, calm, powerful, calculating. But there was something different in her eyes today. "Your contract term has been fulfilled," she said without preamble. D1 blinked. "What?" "The initial contract was for 1 standard year of service. That year is complete as of yesterday." She pulled up a holographic document. "According to Velmarha law, I can extend the contract, but you have the right to renegotiate terms or refuse entirely." "But you said 8 years, until Hirin reaches maturity." "I said that was my intention, but I will not force you." The Empress stepped closer. "You have done more than I could have hoped for, D1. You have kept my daughter alive. More than that, you have changed her, made her stronger, taught her things I could never teach." D1 did not understand where this was going. "Then why?" "Because I want her to understand something important." The Empress's voice was quiet now. "I want her to know what it means when someone chooses to stay, not because they are paid, not because they are forced, but because they want to." The door opened. Hirin walked in, looking confused. She saw D1 and immediately moved to his side. "Mother, what is happening?" "I am giving D1 a choice," the Empress said. She gestured to a table where several items sat. "The first option, I have prepared a reward for his service, enough wealth to live comfortably for the rest of his life, a parcel of land on any world he chooses, letters of recommendation that will open doors anywhere in the galaxy, and freedom from his contract. He can leave today if he wishes." Hirin's face went pale, her hands clenched into fists. "The second option," the Empress continued, "is that he stays, not as a contracted guard, but as your chosen guardian, family as you have both called it. No payment beyond basic expenses, no formal obligation, just choice." "This is not fair," Hirin said, her voice shaking. "You are making him choose between his freedom and me." "No," D1 said quietly. "She is making me choose what I want my life to be." He looked at the items on the table. Wealth, freedom, a new start somewhere far from assassination attempts and plasma burns and constant danger. It was tempting. He would be lying if he said otherwise. "Can I talk to Hirin alone?" he asked. The Empress nodded and left without another word. Once they were alone, D1 sat down on one of the benches. Hirin sat beside him, not looking at him. She was crying again. She cried more easily now than she had 8 months ago. D1 thought that was probably healthy. "You want to leave," she said. It was not a question. "I did not say that. But you should leave. You should take the reward and go somewhere safe. Somewhere you do not have to keep getting hurt because of me." She wiped at her eyes. "You have already given me so much. More than you had to. You should have a life of your own." "What if this is the life I want?" She looked up at him, confused. D1 smiled. "You know what I figured out over the past few months. I was not happy before I came here. I did security work because I was good at it, but it did not mean anything. I went from job to job, place to place. No real connections, no real purpose. But you could have those things now. With the Empress's reward, you could do anything." "I could, but would it matter?" He turned to face her fully. "These past 8 months I have watched you grow. I have taught you things, protected you, argued with you about whether chocolate or vanilla is better. I have been part of your life. And you know what? That matters. That means something. You are saying you want to stay. I am saying that I already made my choice the moment I threw myself in front of those weapons at the reception. I chose you then, Hirin. Everything since has just been following through." Fresh tears ran down her scaled face. "You are crazy, you know that. Humans are crazy." "Yeah, we kind of are." He put an arm around her shoulders. "But we are also loyal and stubborn. And when we care about someone, we do not just walk away because things get hard. But you could die. There will be more attacks, more attempts, you know this." "Maybe, probably." D1 shrugged with his good shoulder. "But I would rather live a life protecting someone I care about than spend 100 years safe and alone." Hirin leaned against him. "I do not want you to stay because you feel obligated." "I do not feel obligated. I feel like this is exactly where I am supposed to be." He squeezed her shoulder gently. "Besides, you still have a lot to learn. Your defensive stance is getting sloppy, and your threat assessment skills need work. I cannot leave until you can handle yourself properly." She laughed through her tears. "There will always be something else you need to teach me." "Good, then I will be here a long time." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Hirin spoke again. "When I was younger, before you came, I used to wonder what it would be like to have a real family, not just attendants and tutors. Someone who actually cared whether I lived or died, not just because it was their job." She looked up at him. "You gave me that. You are family, D1. Real family." "You are family to me too, kid." "Then you will stay." "I will stay." The door opened. Empress Talrayson entered as if she had been waiting just outside, probably had been, knowing her. "Have you made your decision?" she asked. D1 stood and bowed formally. "I choose to stay, not as a contractor, as Hirin's guardian, her teacher, her." He paused, then smiled, "her family." The Empress nodded slowly. Something that might have been satisfaction crossed her face. "This was always the answer I hoped for, you know. Not because I needed you to stay. I have the resources to hire 1,000 guards, but because I wanted my daughter to experience what it means to be chosen, to be valued for herself, not her title." "She is worth valuing," D1 said simply. "I know, but I could never show her that the way you could." The Empress looked at her daughter. "Hirin, do you accept D1 as your chosen guardian?" "Yes," Hirin said immediately, "for as long as he is willing to stay." "Then it is done. The contract is void. You serve by choice now, D1. The palace is your home for as long as you wish it." Over the following months, something interesting happened. Herein started teaching other young Velmarha royals the lessons D1 had taught her. Not combat skills, though those too, but the deeper lessons. How to care about others. How to put someone else's safety before your own. How courage was not the absence of fear but action despite it. It was strange to watch. These young aliens learning human values from a princess who had learned them from a security contractor who just wanted to help. Commander Kelvin approached D1 one day during a training session. "You are changing them," he said, watching Herin demonstrate proper protective stance to 3 younger students. "She is changing them," D1 corrected. "I just gave her the tools." "No, you gave her something our entire species forgot we were missing." Kelvin was quiet for a moment. "We are very good at surviving, we Velmarha. We calculate odds, we plan escapes, we endure, but we do not protect, not the way you do." "Maybe that is changing." "Perhaps," Kelvin nodded toward Herin. "She will be Empress someday, and when that day comes she will rule differently than her mother, because of you." D1 had not thought about it that way. He was just trying to keep one kid safe. But maybe Kelvin was right. Maybe the ripples would spread farther than he imagined. That evening, D1 and Herin sat in their favorite spot in the garden. The same garden where he had been bitten by the Kalshara. The creature's den had been relocated, but the memory remained. "Do you ever regret it?" Herin asked suddenly. "Staying, I mean, giving up the chance to do something else." D1 thought about it, really thought about it. "No," he said finally. "I have never been more certain of anything in my life. Even though you keep getting hurt. Even though, because the scars remind me that I am doing something that matters." He looked at her. "You matter, Herin, not because you are a princess, not because you will be Empress someday, but because you are you, smart, brave, kind, worth protecting." She smiled. "You always know what to say to make me feel better." "It is a gift." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the glowing plants shimmer in the darkness. Above them, through the transparent sections of the palace dome, stars glittered cold and distant. Somewhere out there the galaxy turned. Threats remained. More assassination attempts would come. There would be danger and pain and fear. But there would also be moments like this. Quiet moments. Safe moments. Moments where a human and an alien sat together in a garden, watching the stars, being family. And for D1, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Princess Herin leaned her head against his shoulder. "Promise me you will stay, even when I am grown, even when I am Empress and do not need protection anymore." "I will stay," D1 promised. "Because by then it would not be about protection. It would be about family, and family stays." "Family stays," she repeated softly. Above them the stars watched in silence. Somewhere in the palace, Empress Talracin watched security footage of the garden, a small smile on her face. She had demanded that the humans stay. But in the end, he had chosen it. And that made all the difference.